तुम हो श्याम राम रही, तुम हो श्याम राम रही, तुम हो श्याम राम रही, राम रहीम श्याम रहीम, राम रहीम श्याम रहीम, राम रहीम श्याम रहीम, राम रहीम श्याम रहीम, बाबा तुम हो श्याम राम रहीम, तुम हो श्याम राम रहीम, अल्लाह यीशु बुद्ध महावीर, अल्लाह यीशु बुद्ध महावीर, अल्लाह यीशु बुद्ध महावीर, अल्लाह यीशु बुद्ध महावीर, नानक साई सौराष्ट्र भी हो, 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 सर्वधर्म प्रिय साई नारायण, सर्वधर्म प्रिय साई नारायण, सर्वधर्म प्रिय साई शंकर, सर्वधर्म प्रिय साई शंकर, तुम हो श्याम राम रही, तुम हो श्याम राम रही, राम रहीम श्याम रही, राम रहीम श्याम रही, बाबा तुम हो श्याम राम रही, बाबा तुम हो श्याम राम रही, अल्लाह यीशु बुद्ध महावीर, अल्लाह यीशु बुद्ध महावीर, नानक साई सौराष्ट्र भी हो, नानक साई सौराष्ट्र भी हो, सर्वधर्म प्रिय साई नारायण, सर्वधर्म प्रिय साई नारायण, सर्वधर्म प्रिय साई शंकर, सर्वधर्म प्रिय साई शंकर, तुम हो श्याम राम रही।
अल्लाह नाम भजो भजो रे भजो, मौला नाम भजो भजो रे भजो,
अल्लाह नाम भजो भजो रे भजो, मौला नाम भजो भजो रे भजो,
अल्लाह नाम भजो भजो रे भजो, मौला नाम भजो भजो रे भजो,
अल्लाह नाम भजो भजो रे भजो, मौला नाम भजो भजो रे भजो,
नानक यीशु महावीर नाम 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 भजो।
श्री बुद्ध देवा भजो, भजो रे भजो, श्री साई बाबा भजो, भजो रे भजो।
श्री बुद्ध देवा भजो, भजो रे भजो, श्री साई बाबा भजो, भजो रे भजो।
श्री बुद्ध देवा भजो, भजो रे भजो, श्री साई बाबा भजो, भजो रे भजो।
श्री बुद्ध देवा भजो, भजो रे भजो, श्री साई बाबा भजो, भजो रे भजो।
श्री रघुराम भजो, गोविंद कृष्ण भजो,
श्री रघुराम भजो, गोविंद कृष्ण भजो।
श्री रघुराम भजो, गोविंद कृष्ण भजो,
श्री रघुराम भजो, गोविंद कृष्ण भजो।
श्री साई बाबा भजो, भजो रे 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 भजो।
अल्लाह नाम भजो, भजो रे भजो, मौला नाम भजो, भजो रे भजो।
अल्लाह नाम भजो, भजो रे भजो, मौला नाम भजो, भजो रे भजो।
नानक यीशु महावीर नाम भजो,
नानक यीशु महावीर नाम भजो।
श्री बुद्ध देवा भजो, भजो रे भजो, श्री साई बाबा भजो, भजो रे भजो।
श्री बुद्ध देवा भजो, भजो रे भजो, श्री साई बाबा भजो, भजो रे भजो।
श्री रघुराम भजो, गोविंद कृष्ण भजो,
श्री रघुराम भजो, गोविंद कृष्ण भजो।
श्री साई बाबा भजो, भजो रे 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 भजो।
अल्लाह नाम भजो,
भजो रे भजो, मौला नाम भजो, भजो रे भजो।
मंदिर में तुम राम हो साई,
मंदिर में तुम राम हो साई,
मंदिर में तुम राम हो साई,
मंदिर में तुम राम हो साई।
मस्जिद में नूर मोहम्मद,
मस्जिद में नूर मोहम्मद,
मस्जिद में नूर मोहम्मद,
मस्जिद में नूर मोहम्मद।
गुरुद्वारे में तुम गुरु नानक,
गुरुद्वारे में तुम गुरु नानक,
गुरुद्वारे में तुम गुरु नानक,
गुरुद्वारे में तुम गुरु नानक।
मन मंदिर में साई साई,
मन मंदिर में साई साई,
मन मंदिर में साई साई,
मन मंदिर में साई साई।
बोलो राम एक ही नाम,
राम एक ही नाम,
बोलो 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 राम
राम हो साई,
मंदिर में तुम राम हो साई,
मस्जिद में नूर मोहम्मद,
मस्जिद में नूर मोहम्मद,
गुरुद्वारे में तुम गुरु नानक,
गुरुद्वारे में तुम गुरु नानक,
मन मंदिर में साई साई,
मन मंदिर में साई साई,
बोलो राम एक ही नाम,
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 सब मिल बोलो साई राम,
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 मंदिर में तुम राम हो साई। अल्लाह ईश्वर तुम हो,
अल्लाह ईश्वर तुम हो,
अल्लाह ईश्वर तुम हो,
अल्लाह ईश्वर तुम हो,
यीशु बुद्ध प्रभु 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 तुम हो,
सौराष्ट्र महावीर तुम हो,
सौराष्ट्र महावीर तुम हो,
सौराष्ट्र महावीर तुम हो,
सौराष्ट्र महावीर तुम हो,
साई राम हो साई कृष्ण 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 हो,
सर्वधर्म प्रभु तुम हो,
सर्वधर्म प्रभु तुम हो,
श्री सत्य साई प्रभु तुम हो,
श्री सत्य साई प्रभु तुम हो,
अल्लाह ईश्वर तुम हो,
अल्लाह ईश्वर तुम हो,
यीशु बुद्ध प्रभु तुम हो,
यीशु बुद्ध प्रभु तुम हो,
सौराष्ट्र महावीर तुम हो,
सौराष्ट्र महावीर तुम हो,
साई राम हो साई कृष्ण हो,
साई राम हो साई कृष्ण हो,
सर्वधर्म प्रभु तुम हो,
सर्वधर्म प्रभु तुम हो,
श्री सत्य साई प्रभु तुम हो,
श्री सत्य साई प्रभु तुम हो,
अल्लाह ईश्वर तुम हो। साईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ साईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वप्रचोदयात्। ॐ साईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वप्रचोदयात्।
ॐ श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः। हरिः ॐ। गणानां त्वा गणपतिगुं हवामहे कविं कवीनामुपमश्रवस्तमम् ज्येष्ठराजं ब्रह्मणां ब्रह्मणस्पत नः शृण्वन्नोतिभिः सीदसादनम्। प्रणो देवी सरस्वती वाजेभिर्वाजिनीवती धीनामवित्रयवतु। गणेशाय नमः सरस्वत्यै नमः श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः। हरिः ॐ। सहस्रपरमा देवी शतमूला शताङ्कुरा सर्वगुं हरतु मे पापं दुर्वादुस्वप्ननाशिनी। काण्डात् काण्डात् परो हन्ति परुषः परुषः परि एवानो दूर्वे प्रतनु सहस्रेण शतेन च या शतेन प्रतनोषि सहस्रेण विरोहसि तस्यास्ते देवीष्टके विधेम हविषा वयम्। अश्वक्रान्ते रथक्रान्ते विष्णुक्रान्ते वसुन्धरा शिरसा धारयिष्यामि रक्षस्व मां पदे पदे। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः।
Om Sai Ram, everyone.
Ram.
Om Sai Ram, everyone.
Sai Ram.
My humble pranam at the lotus feet of our beloved Bhagavan. Sai Ram, everyone, and welcome to the Pathway to Prashanti podcast. I am Vajra Kumara, your facilitator for this podcast. For those who don't know me, I am based in Wellington and have the privilege of serving as the Central Region President of Sri Sathya Sai Global Council of New Zealand. I am delighted to introduce our guest speaker tonight, Uncle Neville Fredericks, Senior Advisor to Sri Sathya Sai Global Council Zone 3. Uncle Neville is a former dairy farmer from Jamberoo, transitioned from agriculture to real estate development in 1981 by establishing a family development company in Wollongong. His dedication to community service is evident through his extensive involvement in various organizations over the years. Uncle Neville has been a proactive member of the Salvation Army Advisory Board for 14 years, served as a deputy chair of the Illawarra Community Housing Trust for 6 years, and held a position as a councilor on a Kiama Council for 14 years, including 7 years as a mayor. He was chair of Illawarra Regional Council, and his service was recognized when he was awarded in the title of Emeritus Mayor for the exceptional service to the local government. In 1976, Uncle Neville received a US Bicentennial Fellowship and was named and by inaugural Business Person of the Year for Wollongong City. His interest in innovation, urban planning led him to the new urbanist movement in the US during the mid-90s, which advocates for building traditional township as alternatives to sprawling subdivisions. In 1997, he initiated the development of new township at Tullimbar, authoring a development control plan that was developed by Shellharbour City Council in 1999. Uncle Neville and wife Jill first visited Swami in 1985, having life-changing experiences. Uncle Neville became involved in the Sai organization as an office bearer in 1995. Over time, he served in many roles, including that of National President Australia and Zone 3 Chair. Tonight, Uncle Neville will share his experience with our beloved Swami, which is particularly his experiences being part of Swami's mission. I encourage all of you to relax, sit back, and enjoy Uncle Neville's inspirational talk. Feel free to ask any questions in the chat box, and I will present them to Uncle Neville at the end of his talk. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Uncle Neville Fredericks. Uncle, floor is over to you now.
Yes. I'm just, can you hear me? Oh, yes, my video's on now.
Yes,
Dear
we can
brothers,
hear.
yes, thank you. So, dear brothers and sisters, respected elders, I acknowledge the divine Sai who is resident in the hearts of each one of you. It's a great privilege to be with you this evening, and thank you kindly for the invitation. It's wonderful to have this technology. I haven't got to do a long plane trip to engage with you all. So perhaps I should start about coming to Swami, not in a great deal of detail, not too much detail, but essentially I had been in public office and I'd left. I'd had a lot of success in my business. And I'd say when I was about 36 to 40, I had a good old-fashioned midlife crisis, I guess that's the only way to describe it. And my wife had heard about Sai Baba, so when I was 41, my wife dragged me off to this strange place, an ashram in southern India, to see Sai Baba. And she'd read one book, and after page 3, she'd burst into tears, knowing that this was the avatar. And having regard to our Christian background and not really being exposed to Eastern philosophy, that was really something. Just that fact arrested me. So I had met over here some people who, she'd taken me to meet people who were in the Sai organization. And I came to realize that they were really wonderful people. And although I didn't share their philosophy, it was a great mystery to me, I was impressed by who they were. And as Baba says, that the best way, if we should never promote him. He's asked us specifically not to promote him. However, if we want to do it, we should live exemplary lives and let others inquire what it is that's motivated us to be so. And he said, then you might tell them a little about me, a little, he said. So the most important way that we can promote the person who we've come to love so deeply and who's transformed all of our lives is to live exemplary lives. I arrived on Christmas morning at Prashanti in 1985. And I sat in the crowd and Baba came out I was stunned by all of the apparent, very clear devotion that everyone had. And I was really focused on the crowd, and Baba was just drifted out, and his eyes went across the crowd, and his eyes met mine. Inside his eyes, inside his pupils, shone, I was about 10 meters back, shone with a brilliant light inside his eyes. Now, I'm Western cultured, pragmatic businessman, accept science, and this to me was impossible. It shocked me deeply that I could see such a thing, and it was so mysterious. And after I regained my composure from seeing this, I turned to my son who was beside me and I said, "Did you see that?" And in a monotone voice, he said, "See what?" So obviously he didn't see what I saw. Anyway, I didn't tell my wife, I didn't tell anyone. My mind was racing about this. And on Boxing Day evening, the day after Christmas, we were staying in a hotel. And I decided to tell Jill that, look, this was a bit worrying to me. It was a mystery beyond mysteries for me. I'd met some wonderful people there, and I said, I just don't feel I belong here. I'm going home. And Jill was a little upset. So she said, and I said, "You stay here with the children. I'm very happy with the people here, and I know that everything will be in order." And so next morning, Jill went out to the ashram early. We called a taxi out, and shortly after, the telephone rang, and my brother-in-law, who was at the ashram and who actually introduced my wife to Swami, he was there, and he said Swami approached him last night and said, where was your brother-in-law and sister-in-law? And he said, "Oh, they went home early, Swami, to their rooms. They were very tired after the travel." He said, "Tell them I'll see them tomorrow at 10 o'clock. So he said to me on the telephone, "You must come out." He said, Jill has told me what you saw. Don't worry about this. He's just demonstrating his power and authority." So with a bit of reluctance, I got into my white clothes and got in a taxi and headed out, and a military truck slammed into the bus, drove the taxi into a bus, and I was thrown into the front of the car and back again, and had quite a bad cut on my lip, and I was knocked out. And so when I got out of the car, a fellow came forward and said, "Where were you going?" I told him to Sai Baba, and so he took me to a hospital, had me stitched up, and sent me off. And I arrived at around about 10 o'clock, and Howard Murfitt had been posted at the gate I'd met him the day before, and he'd been posted there to show me where to go. And I went inside, and my family were already in there. And my wife she took one look at me and burst into tears. I was really heavily concussed and had a big patch on my lip. I had a number of stitches in my lip. And she called out, "What happened?" And Swami said, "Car accident, bad drivers." He said he was really as though he was annoyed with the driver. And then he put his hands across his face like this slowly. He said, "This was my blessing." So I needed a good bang on the head, obviously. And then he went like this. And he said, "But for my grace." And I saw the clearest vision in my mind of myself going face first through the windscreen. "But for my grace." And I realized instantly, with great belief, that what would have happened to me, but for his grace. And then he gave me some vibhuti, and I'd seen this from a distance, but to see it close up, it was really something. My eyes were as big as saucers because, I mean, I didn't even know what darshan was. I hadn't read about Baba. So this was really a standing start. Anyway, after he gave me vibhuti, he said, everyone's upset, interview over. He said, I'll see you afterwards. So I decided to stay and not go home. And through the next week, I was really started to think seriously about, one, this phenomena of Sai Baba, and two, my own life. And I have to say that one of the reasons I nearly didn't come to India is because I'd been suffering a duodenal ulcer for about 6 years, seriously ill with it. I could only shuffle, and I had to hold my hand, and they didn't have the drugs that they have now, and I was told not to travel, and it was a serious chronic condition. And I'd spend 1 or 2 days a week in bed. It was a real serious problem with me. So on New Year's Eve, we came down to the Bhajan Hall late, and for some reason I was pushed, and I ended up sitting right at the front, only a matter of 4 or 5 meters from Baba. And I mean, if you tried to do that, it's not possible. So anyway, that was just what happened. And Baba came back from walking between the men and the women. Beautiful bhajan singing that evening, the first time I really enjoyed it. And while he was down there between the men and women, it's the first time in my life I prayed wholesomely with great uncertainty. If God exists, I want to experience him in my life. And so Baba came back and sat down, and then he looked at me, and I had the most beautiful, beautiful, loving expression. And all of a sudden, my guard dropped, and I felt a sense of joy. And then he looked intensively at me again. I experienced divine love in full measure. And I have never experienced such joy before or since. And Baba, I closed my eyes because I started weeping in joy, and I put my head down, and when I opened my eyes, Baba's feet were in front of me, and I looked up to him, and he said, very soon. I didn't know at the time what that meant. And then he left the Bhajan Hall. So back in the hotel that evening where we were staying in the city, we were awakened at midnight with the revelry of New Year's Eve. And I was just going back to sleep, and I suddenly got these huge shocks of energy through me. And all of this is just such a mystery to me. At first, it worried me because of the power of these feelings. Although it was a beautiful feeling, because I didn't know what it was, I was filled with uncertainty. But anyway, I got accustomed to them quickly. But my mind was racing, trying to work out what it was. And suddenly I had the thought, Sai Baba. And the huge shock, the biggest of all, came through me. And that was the moment, which was very soon. And that was the moment, that very moment, when I realized that God existed, that he was omnipresent, and that Baba was an avatar. In that moment, those beautiful experiences went on all night. And I awoke in the morning. It was really interesting in the morning. My mind kept on going to that great Christian hymn, Amazing Grace. How precious did that grace appear. the hour I first believed. I was on a high. Everything I saw had great beauty. We were driving out to the ashram, and everything was shimmering in beautiful light. Seen through the eyes of love, Baba says, all things are beautiful. And I looked across and saw a beggar between two buildings. We were going very slowly in the traffic. And he had one leg, and he was grimacing as he tried to struggle forward with a stake under his arm. And I felt this swell from my heart, not my mind. The most interesting phenomena, this, if words can come from the heart, my chest filled, may God bless you. In that high state I was in at that time, it was heartfelt in the fullest sense. The beggar dissolved into light, into a ball of light about the size of a human body, and then shimmering, brilliant light, it came across to the side of the taxi. I was in the back seat, left side. And suddenly it reappeared as the beggar with his hands at the window. And I saw the greatest joy and the return of that love to me. And of course, all of these experiences, one could never, ever be the same again. It just transformed my life. And Baba went back to Prashanti. I was still very ill with the that day, later in the ashram, I said to Joel, I feel so well, I'm going to stop taking the drug that I was using to keep me on my feet. And Jill roused on me and said, if you do that, I'll be nursing you again in no time. I said, I'm well. You know, when you've got a duodenal ulcer, it's pretty awful, and it's with you every moment. I said, I feel well. And a couple of days later, Baba went back to Prashanti, and we followed him back there. And we were called for interview in family. And Baba, when it came to his turn to address me, or he turned and addressed me at one point, and he put his hand on his stomach, where the same location, my duodenal ulcer. And he said, when I looked at you, your spot was gone. So I realized I was healed from that terrible condition that I suffered for 6 years. And I knew that was correct, because you know when you've got a chronic duodenal ulcer, large, chronic and active was the diagnosis. Baba told me, amongst other things, that I should do public work. I had been in council. I was mayor of Kiama when I was only 30. And he said, do public work, you will be happier. So I decided, I ran for federal parliament in a seat that I couldn't win. Anyway, that brought me the political profile again, and then I ran for local government again and became mayor. And I was so enamored with Baba's advice to love all, serve all, never criticize anybody. And so when I was in that role, we had a couple of very interesting personalities as councillors, and it seemed that their life purpose was to bring me down, which was, I thought, was very challenging at the time, but I realise now that what a great boon that was, because it helped me to think through all of these challenges and how I should deal with people and how I should have resilience. If someone criticizes you, Baba said, they're your best friend. Your flatterer is your worst enemy. But at the start, I was having great difficulty managing this constant criticism and not really challenging these people to behave as well as I should have as mayor of the town, because I was trying to love the opposition, and it wasn't working. And so we went back to Prashanti at Christmas. We went back routinely at Christmas at that time. And Baba called me in, and he said two interesting things that really helped transform the way I was dealing with that circumstance. He said, firstly, how do you love another? Here's me trying to love the opposition, but it wasn't working. He said, you must first love yourself. And how do you love yourself? You must first have self-confidence. And how do you get self-confidence? You must live in harmony with your conscience. And I think that's really been the greatest teaching that I've had. That if we adhere to the dictates of our conscience, nothing can knock us off course. That's where we get our personal strength from. And as Baba said, a breached conscience is an uneasy companion. The other thing Swami said, and this directly related to why I was in public office, in a position of authority, but he said, always thinking spiritual, spiritual, spiritual. And then he held up his finger and wagged it at me and said, first common sense, then spiritual sense, you have to live in the world. So I had to do my duty in that circumstance. So our personal spiritual path is actually very personal. When we first come to Baba, we are drawn deeply to being in his presence. We long deeply to be in his presence. We love to hear the stories of his leelas and the miracles, and that's just gripping. But Baba said, you then move to reading my discourses and understanding the importance of my teachings. That's the second phase. And the third phase, the most difficult, is to put those teachings into practice. I know in that regard, I got a bit of a speed wobble up, and until I found in one of Baba's discourses, he said, the way you transform yourself is to take one item at a time, one matter that you know needs to be corrected in your personality and your attitude. Work on that until it becomes part of your nature, and then take on the next one. Transforming our character and our behavioural qualities and the way we think can't just be done with a Harry Potter wand. It takes a lot of hard work. It was one of the things that was very challenging to me is when the community found out that their mayor was chasing a guru. And, you know, in politics, about 50% of the people are with you and 50% against. It seems to be, unfortunately, the way it is. But I was on the conservative side of politics, and so a lot of the people, conservatives, were horrified that their mayor was chasing a guru. And so I found myself in a place that was very, very difficult. I did overcome that in time. with Swami's advice and reading his teachings as to how I should approach things, and I did develop great confidence. The power of Baba's words is remarkable. I recall a Benedictine monastery was opening in our district. And of course, Benedictine monasteries aren't open very often these days. And they had relocated from a city location, and they came into a rainforested hillside, and they bought a property, and these were a contemplative order. There were about 40 nuns, and they came to me to get help about getting approval for their monastery, and I worked with them quite a lot. We worked through the tangle of planning law, and we finally were able to get them an approval. And so on opening day, they had asked me to speak as the mayor of the town. So Mother Benedicta spoke, and then I spoke, and the bishop. Now, I had looked in Baba's discourses and teachings to see if I could find something that was relevant. And I found a beautiful quote that empowered people who were choosing a contemplative path. And so when it was my time to speak, and I must say that many people locally in the modern society were having trouble understanding the role of a contemplative order in modern society. And a lot of people were even saying in the media, why this? If they want to do some work, why don't they go out in the streets and help the people and the unfortunate? Why are they just sitting up there doing nothing? And so the community at large had been expressing lack of understanding. And so when I read out this quote from Baba, and it was about half a dozen sentences, and it started off, and I told them this is a quote. This was comment by a Westerner, an Easterner speaking to a group of Westerners. I didn't say so, Baba. And he said, it started off, your Western heritage reveres action and activity. And in fact, I should have had that quote here, but I don't. And I read on, but it finished by saying, if stillness is in your nature, dare to be so. If you are a recluse, be a recluse, while always remembering the author, the source. Now, when I looked down, now the trouble was that I spoke with great confidence because I believe deeply in Baba and the truth of his words. And other people tell me it just came out powerfully, very powerfully, and that was probably Baba speaking. All of the nuns were in tears. The crowd erupted into applause. It didn't stop. It kept on going because there was 1,500 in the audience. They'd come from monasteries all over the world. They had all these lovely friar tuck sort of robes. And from South America, from Europe, from India, from South Africa. Remarkable gathering. And look at the power of Baba's words. And a week later, I was contacted, could you please send us that quote? We're going to put out a booklet commemorating this, and we want to read that. We want to publish that quote. And who was it who spoke those words? And I said, Sai Baba. And apparently that publication went around the world. So it's interesting how the words of Swami are gradually getting out there. And it's rather interesting that I'm still in business. I work with my family, my son and daughter, in our property business. And I often see consultants and commentary where I see Baba's quotes actually being spoken and referred to, not attributed to him, but just as sort of Eastern wisdom or the ancient wisdom or whatever. So it is really very, very interesting to see this, the depth of the power of his words. I think that legacy will be here for thousands of years. His teachings were recorded faithfully, translated faithfully, and recorded, and it's the most remarkable wisdom ever available to mankind, unreservedly. For they come from the one who said, "There is no thing which I do not know. There is nowhere where I do not know the way. Picture me in any form, and I will present myself to you. I am the totality, all of it." Now, you can't accept that unless you accept that the whole of creation is the body of God. There is no thing which is not he. And Baba says, "See me in the eyes of everyone you meet. I am watching you through the eyes of everyone you meet." There are three paths on the spiritual pathway. The path of devotion, Baba says. The path of knowledge, which Baba says is by far the hardest. And the path of loving service. It's interesting that twice I recall reading in Baba's discourses the story of Abu Ben Adam. Some of you may know it and some of you may not, but I think it's very beautiful. And in fact, it's interesting because my grandmother used to read this to me when I sat on her bed as a child. Abu Ben Adam was the son of a Persian prince in about the 9th century. And he was in the practice of every evening he would go out and take food out to the poor in the streets of their village, of the community. And he would come in and prepare for bed and retire. And one evening he was awakened by an angel, glowing angel. And he rose and approached her and said, "Mother," and she had a big book and she was writing. And he said, "Mother, what are you writing?" And she said, "I'm writing the names of those people who love God." "Is my name there?" he said. "No, it is not." And she vanished. And the next evening, again, he'd come in from doing his loving service and retired. And again he awoke and the angel was in the room again, writing in this book. And again he arose and said, "Mother, what are you writing?" She said, "I'm writing the name of those people whom God loves." "Is my name there?" "Yes, it is. It's the top of the list." Now here's Baba's advice, that the path of loving service, to love all, serve all, is the easiest path, it's the most fulfilling path, and one that gives us the greatest joy. Dear brothers and sisters, I hope a few words here have been of interest, and I look forward to attempting to speak a little bit about any questions or matters that you might raise. Thank you so much. Saram.
Okay, Sairam. Thank you so much for your for sharing your experience and enlightenment words. It is a true honor for have you here as our guest speaker. Thank you so much, Uncle. There are a couple of questions has been posted. Let me read the first one. The first question is, how do we surrender to Swami unconditionally?
I think when we get to that point, we're realized it's unconditional love is accepting the whole of creation as the body of God, and we are a part of that. And our true being is not the mind, not the body, but rather we are spiritual beings. A bit like the French Jesuit philosopher and teacher in the 1920s, Pierre Teilhard de Chardin, said, we are not spiritual beings. We're not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. It's when we come to grasp that I think we've arrived. Now, that is a very hard state to be in because the sensory inputs to our mind are constants from taste, hearing, sight, touch, etc. And that's clouding the truth of our being. So Baba says we all know very deeply, at a very deep level, that who the truth of our being, that we're not the mind, that we are spiritual beings. And he said, whenever we assert ourselves, assert our identity, whose jacket is this? And you weren't heard, and you said mine, but you weren't heard. And so whoever was holding the jacket up calls out louder, whose jacket is this? And you assert yourself. Baba used these words, and he said, your hand falls over your heart. Hand falls over your heart. And that's because your spirit, your soul, the Atma, resides in the vicinity of the physical heart, which is on the left side, on the right side. And your hand falls there. When you assert yourself and say, mine, you don't say mine. That's a big bag of problems. You say, it's mine, my hand. And he said, every human being will instinctively give this gesture because at the very deepest level, we know we are spiritual beings. My last interview with Swami was really interesting. In many ways mysterious. It was the day after Swami's 80th birthday. And I'd been speaking to the Australians, the group of Australians, and I went to the veranda. It was about 3:30. And Swami called me in with one other fellow. And by the way, he said, it was my last interview and this fellow's first interview. And Swami said to him, what do you want? And he said, a ring. And Swami sent him straight out because Swami wants us to want more than that. So then I had about 10 minutes with Swami, 10, maybe a bit more. It seemed a lot longer. And that's the first time that I had really felt friendship with Baba and in a relaxed state. Up until that time, I knew who he was. I was in awe of him, a bit like a peasant in the court of an emperor, a little trembling, maybe, a little uncertain. But on this occasion, he smiled, we chatted, not philosophical, he just gave me he removed that uncertainty and let me believe he was my friend for the first time. It was the most beautiful gift. And 5 separate occasions, he asked me to come forward and put my forehead on his knees. I was kneeling in front of him. And he ran his hand down my spine, backwards and forwards. I don't know what that was for, to save me from a few catastrophes, maybe. And my goodness, that was just beautiful because, as I said, it wasn't philosophical. He didn't know teachings there. We were just friends, and there was a lot of just sitting, smiling, where he just smiled at me and there was nothing said. Just as 2 friends can sit together and no need to talk. And I think, although not much happened in the way of advice, that was, for me, that was by far the most profound teaching experience I had with Bubba, apart from that first night when my ulcer was healed and God came pretty soon. So those are the 2, and maybe the beggar and the appearing is a ball of light. They're probably the 3 key issues for me. But realization, I think it's God's grace when it comes. I'm not sure the best we can do is take that half-metre journey from your head to your heart and be very sensitive to the prompting of conscience. Baba says we experience God daily in 2 ways. One, when we express love to someone or something, he said, that's not your love, that's God's love, for God is love. But that's God loving others. And the other way is when Baba said, when you experience the prompt of conscience, that is the voice of God guarding and guiding you. So I think the realization comes when we accept that we are spiritual beings and we strive to live in harmony with our conscience. And when we get to the point that the most beautiful thing that we could possibly see in this earth, on this earth, is a kindly gesture to a stranger. For then we're revealing that we know the truth, that God resides in every human heart, and God is, in fact, the totality of all.
Sairam uncle, thanks for that explanation. There's a follow-up question. I will read that for you. It says, this material and dualistic world, how do we practice love all, serve all? It seems very simple when uncle talk about it. Any practical tips to practice this?
Oh, heavens. It is a material world. We grow up, that's the culture we live in, so it's very hard to break. Baba said there's nothing wrong with wealth. It's your attitude towards it is the key. Nothing happens without his will. So if wealth comes your way, that's fine. If it doesn't come your way, that may be your karma or whatever. Just do your best and leave the rest, as Baba has said. Do your best and leave the rest. For me, it was changing my company. My group of friends that I had, friends inverted commas, before I came to Baba, were completely different. The beautiful people I engaged with post Baba. And one of the most valuable things for me in my journey, my spiritual journey, was engaging with members of this organisation. There is I've been engaged in probably 30 organisations in my life. And there is no one, no organisation that even comes anywhere near it for the beauty of the members, the beauty of their personalities, the beauty of their intentions. So Baba says, keep good company. All my old friends disappeared. They ran away pretty quick. They weren't interested in having friendship with someone who was chasing gurus. But I have to say, the beauty of the Sai followers is my joy. It gave me joy in my role. It is difficult, but I've been through. And Baba said to me at one stage, having great difficulty in one of a downturn in the property sector, and he held his hands up tight and looked at me. Said, "Money tight, 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 tight." He said. And I said, "Yes, Swami." And he said, "Don't worry, soon it will go up, up, up." Well, when I got home, the bank foreclosed on our house. I'd had that supporting a mortgage, and we lost our house and pretty well lost everything, and I had to start again. So I've come to realise that soon, in Baba's terms, might be next life. But things have come back quite well. But our affluence can come and go, but as Swami said, let your morality come and grow. Let me just pass one thing on this materialistic thing. I was so impacted by Swami. We built an office building in Wollongong, went really well. We built the next one was a 7-story office building, a bit bigger, and just at the end of the building, we hadn't quite finished it. The last major payment, our financier became bankrupt and couldn't make the last payment, and the office market had collapsed in our city, and the value of the building was less than what it cost, and I didn't have the money to finish the last. And I looked at the ceiling stared at the ceiling for a month until I couldn't bear it anymore. Because if I couldn't make that last payment in that company, I had 2 other people with me in it. We had 50% and they had the balance. That I knew all of those, that builder was going to go down, and many of his tradesmen who couldn't be paid. And so Baba said, help ever, hurt never. So I got all of the builder and the trades into a room, and I said, here's the circumstance. My partners aren't prepared to put any in from their other resources. I said, it was $1.5 million in 1985, so it was quite a bit of money. Nowadays, that might be 8-10 million. I said, I don't have this money at the moment, but I personally undertake to pay you all. You'll have to wait. And I'll pay you progressively, and the ones who are in strife come forward first, and I'll try and help you. Well, we sold everything we could, and and in 20 months, I'd paid everyone off, and didn't have a skint. I was end of mine. It was 1987, 2 years after coming to Baba, but I could sleep. 1 week later, I got a call from the CEO of a bank, a building society, who said, our directors have been to England. They want to get involved in vertical integration. They want to get involved in some development. We've asked around town, would you, and we've chosen you, we'd like to engage with you in a joint venture. And I said, oh, look, you're a bit of a bad time for me. I just haven't got any ready cash, in brackets. I'm broke. And he said, don't worry, we'll provide all of the capital, pay you for management, you can have 50% of the profit. Are you interested? Well, it didn't take long for me to say yes. You know, in the next 5 years, we made 10 times more than what I gave to all of those tradesmen. I didn't have to give them at law. That was from my personal, wasn't the company that went broke. That was from my personal resources. Dharma empowers, Dharma protects you. Dharma brings with it its own reward. Live the teachings. I think the materialized, just focus on living those values. Resources will come. God's grace will be there. Do your best, work hard, do the right thing, and the door of opportunity will always be open. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, sharing that experience. That is very, very heart-touching. There's another question, question number 3. Unfortunately, the current situation in the world is not very ideal. Under such circumstances, how can we be in the harmony with our conscience?
Well, I think being in harmony with one's conscience is very much a personal thing. It doesn't relate to what's going on around the world. We may feel aggrieved by that. We're all very concerned. I know there's widespread concern about what's going on in the world at the moment, and not just from the politics and war, but from the environmental degradation, and the future is not boding too well in terms of global warming. But we can only influence the world by our own conduct. Don't be overly concerned about other people. Don't make judgments of other people. Judge yourself harshly. Be your own critic. Thank people who criticize you, because it makes you analyze whether or not you're at fault on anything, and whether there's room for you to correct something. If there's not, let the criticism pass. So you thank your critic. But the key is to live in harmony with your conscience, and then you will develop your confidence. That first quote, it's hard to love others and to love the world until you love yourself. You can't love yourself until you have self-confidence, and that can only come through developing a high sensitivity towards the prompting of conscience. And Baba says, if you don't sense, if something's bothering you and you can't feel it, Baba says, wait. There's an old saying, I'll sleep on it. And in the morning you wake up with clarity. So you've been in touch with your conscience and your mind is clear about a course of action. He says we have no right to judge another, because wrong action is actually lack of knowledge. If people knew better, they wouldn't conduct themselves so. Sometimes that's very hard to grasp when we see some of this conduct. But if we didn't believe that, you wouldn't believe in the capacity that people have to reform themselves. Who is it, Valmiki, who fell in with who was a highway robber in the Hindu tradition, and he became a great saint. And to me, there is the answer. We all have this potential. And if you're an inspirational person and living according to your conscience, you will be inspirational, and you'll have a beneficial effect on all around you. Thank you.
Thank you, Sairam. I think that's all the questions we have today. So I would like to thank Uncle Neville for your time, and many thanks of sharing your experiences with Swami and giving all those advices. Quite a lot today. Definitely I'm going to listen this YouTube video again. And thank you so much, Uncle, for your time again. And I really appreciate your effort And Swami's love and grace with you. Now we are going to hand it over to our brother Sarang, who will play 3 Swami's songs. Then there will be Arati and finish it off. Thank you so much.
Brothers and sisters.
जय गणेश जय गणेश जय गणेश देवा
जय गणेश जय गणेश देवा
जय गणेश जय गणेश जय गणेश देवा
जय गणेश जय गणेश देवा
श्री गणेश श्री गणेश श्री 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 गणेश देवा
जय गणेश जय गणेश जय गणेश देवा
जय गणेश जय गणेश जय गणेश देवा
भक्तोद्धारणा भक्तजन पोषणा
भक्तोद्धारणा भक्तजन पोषणा
भक्तोद्धारणा भक्तजन पोषणा
भक्तोद्धारणा भक्तजन पोषणा
पाप विनाशना भक्त संरक्षणा
पाप विनाशना भक्त संरक्षणा
पाप विनाशना भक्त संरक्षणा
पाप विनाशना भक्त संरक्षणा
ओंकारा प्रणव श्री रूपा
ओंकारा प्रणव श्री रूपा
ओंकारा प्रणव श्री रूपा
ओंकारा प्रणव श्री रूपा
पार्वती नंदना जय जगवंदना
पार्वती नंदना जय जगवंदना
पार्वती नंदना जय जगवंदना
पार्वती नंदना जय जगवंदना
जय गणेश जय गणेश जय गणेश देवा
जय गणेश जय गणेश जय गणेश देवा
श्री गणेश श्री गणेश श्री गणेश देवा
श्री गणेश श्री गणेश श्री गणेश देवा
जय गणेश जय गणेश जय गणेश देवा
जय गणेश जय गणेश जय गणेश देवा
भक्तोद्धारणा भक्तजन पोषणा
भक्तोद्धारणा भक्तजन पोषणा
पाप विनाशना भक्त संरक्षणा
पाप विनाशना भक्त संरक्षणा
ओंकारा प्रणव श्री रूपा
ओंकारा प्रणव श्री रूपा
पार्वती नंदना जय जगवंदना
पार्वती नंदना जय जगवंदना
पार्वती नंदना जय जगवंदना
पार्वती नंदना जय जगवंदना
जय गणेश जय गणेश जय गणेश देवा गुरुवर नाम पावन नाम गुरुवर नाम पावन नाम
गुरुवर नाम पावन नाम
सतगुरु नाम गुरु नानक 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 नाम
गुरुवर नाम पावन नाम
गुरुवर नाम पावन नाम
गुरुवर नाम पावन नाम
गुरुवर नाम पावन नाम
सद्गुरु साई बाबा नाम
सतगुरु साई बाबा नाम
सद्गुरु साई बाबा नाम
सतगुरु साई बाबा नाम
गुरुवर नाम पावन नाम
गुरुवर नाम पावन नाम
सतगुरु नाम गुरु नानक नाम
सतगुरु नाम गुरु नानक नाम
गुरुवर नाम पावन नाम
गुरुवर नाम पावन नाम
सद्गुरु साई बाबा नाम
सतगुरु साई बाबा नाम
सद्गुरु साई बाबा नाम
सतगुरु साई बाबा नाम
जय गुरु सद्गुरु नानक नाम जय बोलो साई बाबा नाम
जय गुरु सतगुरु नानक नाम जय बोलो साई बाबा नाम
जय गुरु सद्गुरु नानक नाम जय बोलो साई बाबा नाम
जय गुरु सतगुरु नानक नाम जय बोलो साई बाबा नाम
जय बोलो साई बाबा नाम
जय बोलो साई बाबा नाम
जय बोलो साई बाबा नाम
जय बोलो साई बाबा नाम
जय गुरु सद्गुरु नानक नाम जय बोलो साई बाबा नाम
जय गुरु सतगुरु नानक नाम जय बोलो साई बाबा नाम
जय गुरु सद्गुरु नानक नाम जय बोलो साई बाबा नाम
जय गुरु सतगुरु नानक नाम जय बोलो साई बाबा नाम
गुरुवर नाम पावन नाम
वाहेगुरु 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 जी बोलो वाहेगुरु 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 जी बोलो वाहेगुरु 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 जी बोलो सत्य नाम सत्य नाम सत्य नाम सत्य नाम सत्य नाम सत्य नाम जी बोलो सत्य नाम सत्य नाम सत्य नाम जी सत्य नाम सत्य नाम सत्य नाम जी बोलो कृष्ण 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 जी बोलो कृष्ण 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 जी बोलो कृष्ण 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 जी बोलो कृष्ण 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 जी बोलो नित्य नित्य जपिए कृष्ण नाम जी नित्य नित्य जपिए कृष्ण नाम जी बोलो बुद्ध 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 जी बोलो 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 नित्य नित्य जपिए बुद्ध नाम जी बोलो नित्य नित्य जपिए बुद्ध नाम जी बोलो नित्य नित्य जपिए बुद्ध नाम जी नित्य नित्य जपिए बुद्ध नाम जी बोलो राम 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 जी बोलो राम 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 जी बोलो राम 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 जी राम 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 जी बोलो नित्य नित्य जपिए राम नाम जी नित्य नित्य जपिए राम नाम जी बोलो नित्य नित्य जपिए राम नाम जी नित्य नित्य जपिए राम नाम जी नित्य नित्य जपिए राम नाम जी बोलो नित्य नित्य जपिए राम नाम जी बोलो
ओम जय जगदीश हरे स्वामी सत्य साई हरे भक्त जना संरक्षक भक्त जना संरक्षक पति महेश्वरा ओम जय जगदीश हरे शशिवदना श्रीकरा सर्वा प्राणपते स्वामी सर्वा प्राणपते आश्रित कल्पलतिका आश्रित कल्पलतिका आपदान्धवा ओम जय जगदीश हरे मातपिता गुरुदैवमु मरि अन्तयु नीवे स्वामी मरि अन्तयु नीवे नाद ब्रह्म जगन्नाथ नाद ब्रह्म जगन्नाथ नागेन्द्रशयना ओम जय जगदीश हरे ओंकार रूप ओजस्वी हो साई महादेवा सत्य साई महादेवा मंगल आरती अंधुको मंगल आरती अंधुको मंदर गिरिधारी ओम जय जगदीश हरे नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण 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 ओम नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण नारायण ओम जय सद्गुरुदेवा नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण 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 ओम नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण नारायण ओम जय सद्गुरुदेवा नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण 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 ओम नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण नारायण ओम जय सद्गुरुदेवा शांति 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 समस्त लोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु
समस्तलोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु समस्तलोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु ॐ